Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. My name is Leela, a student from the Faculty of Science. Welcome to You Alive. Today's event is organized by the NUS Office of Alumni Relations. The program today is in 3 sections. First, a 10-minute talk by our speaker, Dr. Yeo Sze Ling, A-star research scientist in the Infocom Security Department, adjunct assistant professor in NTU, and alumna from NUS Faculty of Science, 2001 and 2006, followed by a 20-minute interview with Visva Sadasivan, chairman of You Alive Organizing Committee, and then a 30-minute Q&A session. If you wish to ask a question, please make your way to the microphones placed along the aisles. Introduce yourself and speak directly into them. This is essential so that the online community is able to hear your question. Today, we will also be using Pigeonhole Live for the Q&A sessions. If you have a smartphone, a tablet, or a laptop computer with you, just launch your internet browser and go to phlive.at. Key in our event passcode, which is UALIVE. I repeat, it is UALIVE. Click go, and you're free to fire away your burning questions, while also voting for any question that interests you. The more popular questions with more votes will stand a higher chance of being answered by the speakers. Also, do remember to leave your feedback on the Pigeonhole application after the show. Thank you for your kind attention. Please sit back and enjoy.
You Alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Yeo Sze Ling.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, okay. It's truly an honor to be here. Thank you for your presence today. Checking through the past speakers, I think I'm really honored to be invited today. Yeah, among all the, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm really very honored to be invited today among all the accomplished speakers. Because even till today, it's always very strange for me to be invited to deliver an inspirational talk. Well, because no matter how I think, I really do not think that I'm inspirational in any way. So I'll just be here to share my own personal experience and perspectives. Yeah, and hopefully you'll gain something out of it. So in case you heard some gibberish just now, I'm currently using my own laptop. So it's actually installed with a speech synthesizer. So this slides which I'm showing now. So as I navigate the keyboard, you actually read out to me what is on every slide. But because it's reading at a very fast speed, so perhaps it may sound a little bit gibberish to all of you, I thought it might be interesting to show you how the visually impaired use our laptop. Okay, so to me, my personal experience may be somewhat, perhaps my personal experience is a little bit more meaningful because it is different from most of you here. In the sense that I have a very obvious shortcoming. So, of a handicap. Yeah. So actually, to put it simply, actually visually impaired. So today I just like to share my own story from the perspective of a visually impaired. So I entitled this talk as Can a Visually Impaired Person Dream? Mainly because over the years, many people have been asking me this question, as in how do I dream? Whether a visually impaired person dream, and how do we dream? So it seems like people are curious, so I thought this might be an interesting topic as a start. And if I have time, I'll try to answer this question as I go along. Yeah, okay, so to make this sharing a little bit more meaningful, I'd like to invite all of you to pause for a moment, perhaps close your eyes and consider this. Have you ever thought, what if what if you lose your sight at this moment and you'll be in this state for the rest of your life?
Slide 3, some responses. One left column will be lost. Careful of the user, right period.
Sorry, because it's a bit slow. Yeah, so, yeah, if I get too nervous, I'll just let you read for me. Yeah. Okay, anyway, yeah, so what if you lose your sight at this moment? So how will you feel? Will it impact your life in any way? Do you think you can continue with what you are doing? Your goals, your dreams? Okay, yeah, so, yeah. So typically, well, it would be interesting if some of you could share with me your thoughts during the Q&A session. But typically, some of the feedback that I received so far is like, oh, I feel fearful, lost, scary, as in not sure how to cope. Yeah, but also a little boy actually shared with me that he finds that it's not so bad because you'll not be able to see all the bad things in the world. So, yeah. So I think that's also an interesting comment. But typically, I think we all of us here agree that vision is something that is very important to everyone. Yeah, I mean it's really a precious gift, and I'm reminded of a little encounter I had with my little niece. Okay. Yeah, so when she was about 4 years old, yeah, which was like a few years ago, because I wanted to be upfront with her and to explain to her that her auntie is visually impaired. Well, I knew that, she has been trained that she needs to let me feel some of the things, but I knew that she is not aware, she still did not understand that her auntie is visually impaired. So I wanted to explain to her. So on a cruise trip, I took the opportunity. Yeah, so I started asking her, because I hold a white cane for my mobility purposes. So I asked her, do you know why I have to take the cane? Because she likes to play with it. Yeah, so I asked her, do you know why I have to take the cane? So her first response, to my surprise was, oh, I know, because you're really old already. Yeah. So unfortunately, wow. So I had to explain to her that, oh, well, because using her language. So I just told her directly, oh, because my eyes are spoiled. And her reaction really surprised me because she kept quiet. And I mean, she was a very active girl, still is, but she just kept quiet. And for a while, she just started asking me, why are your eyes spoiled? Is it you read books too closely? You watch TV too closely? Or, well, why don't you get a better specs? Why are your eyes spoiled? And for that day, she just kept asking me various questions. I could tell that she was really disturbed. And what really touched me was that at the end of the day, she actually came to me voluntarily and told me, oh, Cuckoo, I want to give you a hug. So it was really touching. But I think her reaction also showed me one thing. Even at this tender age of hers, just around 4 years old, she felt a great loss for someone to be without sight. I mean, to her, how could someone be without sight? I said, yeah, this is so important to her. So, well, I shared her sentiments as well. So even being visually impaired myself. But my experience has taught me, which I also like to share, that although vision is something precious and something important, yeah, but without it, all of us, I think that I also still have some other gifts which I should learn to appreciate and focus on. Yeah, so this is. This is something that I hope that I could share throughout the session today. Okay, yeah.
Slide 10, my own reflections. One important to accept myself, both my strengths and weaknesses, semicolon, 1.
Yeah, okay, so incidentally, yeah, so I lost my sight at the age, roughly at the age of my niece, around 4 years old. Yeah, but I wasn't that intelligent as her. I think I did not quite understand the impact at that time. In fact, I perhaps did not even know that I am really different from the people around me until my parents started noticing that I didn't see things normally. And yeah, so they brought me to visit an ophthalmologist to diagnose that I contracted glaucoma. So glaucoma is actually a common eye disease affecting the water pressure in my eye. So it shot up very high to the extent that it damaged my optic nerves. So it was an irreversible damage. So even after a few surgeries, my vision was reduced to just mere light perception. So at this point in time, I'm not able to tell, I'm not able to see any of you here. So I don't know how big this place is. So I can only tell whether it's bright or dark. So my vision was reduced to just light perception. So as all parents, my parents were certainly devastated. I mean, to have a blind daughter, how are they going to cope? How are they going to help me? What sort of future would I have? Could I even go to school? Or could I even support myself in future? So of course they were concerned. And the first instinct, they try all possible cures. So bring me to see, visit different doctors, or religious cures, whatever they heard of. So for a while they were trying all sorts of things. So I guess because I still did not quite understand the impact. So at a certain time I just felt quite sick of going to all these places. I just told them directly that I don't want to go to all these places anymore. Just live with it. It doesn't really matter. So of course, they were still hoping for some kind of cure, but they also knew that, they had to face the reality. Which is how my whole family, we all had to learn how to cope with my visual impairment. So growing up as a visually impaired girl, of course, slowly, gradually, unfortunately, I began to really learn that I'm really different from this world. Consciously and subconsciously. Just give one example. So, for example, I have to use the cane to help me navigate around for mobility purposes. So interestingly, this cane has also attracted a lot of stares. So I was often reminded, by the people around me, especially when I was young. So the more direct ones would directly tell me, hey, many people are staring at you. Or the more not so direct one will just try to encourage me not to use my cane. So such experience also, because such a knowledge really just got stuck in my head for quite a while. I became a bit subconscious that I just imagine that the whole world likes to look at me when I'm in public. So I just felt that, hey, it seems like I'm just a strange animal that people like to look at. So for a while, I just felt subconscious. So it took quite a while for me to get over it, for me to ignore, and not to think about whether there are people staring at me or not. So I know that vision is a precious gift, but do please use it wisely. Don't anyhow stare at people. Okay. So on the more practical aspects, so I also had to learn to deal with coping with daily life, coping with different things. So I'm not able to read, so I had to rely on different other aids. Like for example, so I use the Braille. So Braille will be my means of writing and reading when I was growing up. So Braille is just a series of raised dots where I could feel. So so I think what's shown here should be my Braille machine and the slate and stylus, which is the primitive type of producing the Braille.
End of slideshow, click to exit.
So okay. And Braille books and abacus, which is it?
One, you live slide, 1 of 12.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So I'll be using Braille books and abacus in throughout my studies as well. Abacus when I was in primary school. So of course, my parents still decided that they should send me to school to receive an education. So these are all the various institutions that I've been through. So in primary school, I was at the Singapore School for the Visually Handicapped, which is now known as the Lighthouse School. And that is a school that is catered solely for visually impaired students. Then following that, I went on to Bedok South Secondary School, which is a mainstream school but with facilities to assist the visually impaired students. And then after that, I went on to Serangoon Junior College, which is totally mainstream, and finally in NUS for a couple of years. Okay. So my whole educational journey is entirely in Singapore. It started from a school whereby people around me are all visually impaired. And progressively went on to university, where I'm really one of the few people in the whole school who is visually impaired. So it started with in my primary school days, where my books and materials will be given to me in Braille. All the way to university, where there isn't any more material in Braille for me to depend on. So it's really a process whereby friends, family members, and teachers, and different volunteers and people help me along. So at different stage, different challenges were faced and different solutions had to be found. So I just like to spend a little bit of time to elaborate more on the NUS stage, since I'm in NUS today. So to me, like any other, typically growing up, so education has always been important to every student. Everyone. Every parent will want their child to have the best education, which hopefully will lead to a good career. This seems to be a known fact, but it seems that for visually impaired persons, this is not so clear-cut, because growing up, I was often told or led to believe through all kinds of sources, even through TV, that TV programs, TV shows, so that the only the kinds of jobs that are suitable for a visually impaired person will be something like either a massage work, or perhaps busking, or perhaps or just like telephone operator. So these are the kinds of jobs that I was led to believe that a visually impaired person can cope. So then it raises the question, so what is the purpose of an education for a visually impaired student? So before I joined NUS, before I enrolled myself in NUS, so I did okay enough for my A-levels to qualify me for an NUS degree. But then there were concerns as in, is there a need for a visually impaired person like me to go on to a degree? Let alone because I decided that I like math and I wanted to go on to math. So why do I go on to do math? As in, what would it lead me to? And besides, I'll be the first visually impaired person in Singapore to go on to university in the faculty of science. There will be no materials in Braille at all for me. So how am I going to cope? Do I want to go through all this trouble, not knowing where it will end me up with? So these are some concerns that people were sharing with me. But choosing between rotting at home and going on with something that I like, so I chose the latter and I wrote myself in NUS. So before I stepped into NUS, so it was quite an intimidating process, because I'm going to enter a big environment, hardly knowing anyone. So not exactly clear how am I going to cope, because the fact is I'm entering NUS without any materials in Braille at all. So to me, it was really a miracle in itself that I could graduate after 8 years. So completing actually 3 research theses. So actually it was amazing. On reflection, it is really amazing, because before I stepped to NUS, people were actually warning me, telling me things like, the world, people are really self-centered. So people will just look after themselves. So students will just hog all the books in the library. So it would be very difficult for me to get help, and I need to be independent. So the lecturers in NUS, they will not be free to help me at all, to teach me if I do not understand. So I entered NUS feeling quite worried. So are people really that unhelpful? But I mean, I think I'm really, really blessed. I must have met all the nicest people around because truly, every module that I've been through, every single module that I've been through, and even my research thesis, all my notes and all my materials were really read to me by someone. So there will be either a friend, a volunteer, or my family member who would actually tape record all the notes for me so that I could listen to them and take them down in braille myself. So and I mean, throughout the 8 years, I met many, many lecturers who helped me in many ways to make accommodations for me during tests and exams. And one particular incident is, so I started to pick up assistive technology. So I started to learn to pick up computer skills when I entered NUS, and it was because the lecturers whom I approached were open-minded enough to think that this skill is also important for me, and found out how to acquire the different assistive technology to help me through. And more importantly, after my 8 years in NUS, so I was really thankful when I received the scholarship to do my PhD so that I could continue my research work and currently work as a research scientist in I2R. Okay.
Slide 10, my own reflections, 1 report 1.
So just my own reflections, okay, just a little while more. Okay, just a quick reflection from my own experience. I think over the years, to say that I've never questioned why I have my visual impairment, or to say that I'm not upset at all, well, it's definitely a lie. Definitely, I have questioned why me, right? But at the same time, I think that through my own experience, I've learned many, many lessons in life. So the most important of which to me is that I really appreciate that I need to first of all begin with myself, to accept my own myself, both my shortcomings and my strength, and to focus on the people who have helped me. So throughout my whole journey, although there are people who tend to tell me that, this is very difficult for a visually impaired, but there are many others who have opened up opportunities for me to go beyond what I could have even imagined myself. So to me, these are the people and these are the events that I should always remind myself and to be grateful for, and not to take anything for granted. So I think this is an important lesson which I learned, to appreciate the people around me much better. So back to my original question, how does a visually impaired person dream? So my simple answer to this is, if I've not seen, I do not know how you look like, and you happen to appear in my dream, I still do not know how you look like. So I hope that's not too cryptic. But more importantly, I think I look at this question in another way as well. Can a visually impaired person aspire like anyone else? Or perhaps even more generally, to me, I think each of us here will have our own shortcomings, some of which are more obvious, like for myself, but some of which perhaps only you yourselves know what your weaknesses or shortcomings are, that you perhaps try to hide it. But should such shortcomings or weaknesses really be hindrances and obstacles to affect us, to tell us that, you should not try things out? So I think I've learned from my experience that, shortcomings are a way for me to challenge myself, to focus on my strengths, to try to overcome them. And I think a very simple quote which I like to borrow from a book which I read to answer to the question, which I continue to remind myself, is this quote from this sports lady, who actually met with an accident and lost her limbs. So she actually said, if I can't walk, I can fly. And I think that is a very simple but meaningful quote to me, that I should not just focus on my weaknesses, but should not always wallow in my weaknesses, but really focus on my strength. So with that, thank you very much.
Context menu, next 10. Menu, slide 12.
Hi, Sze Ling.
Hi.
Thank you very much for coming. Have a seat. So, first of all, I must say I've become a big fan of yours, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of us. it has made us ask so many questions about ourselves, how we feel sorry for ourselves, But at the end of the day, the one word that comes to my mind when I look at you standing there, the one word is dignity. You have so much of dignity in yourself, and that for me is a powerful lesson. But I guess what comes to my mind is this. This couldn't have just happened. I mean, as you admitted that there were moments when you were down. There would have been several such moments, I'm sure, in your life.
Yeah.
Especially, where people may be less than sensitive in the comments they make. It could be family members, it could be close friends, it can hurt you. It can break your spirit. The question is, in spite of all those things, and Singapore is not, until at least more recently, Singapore is not really known to be that inclusive a society. I mean, this is my observation. I think only in the recent past have we been truly, in spirit, inclusive. We've been using the word bandit around for some time, but I think we've still a way to go in terms of truly embracing that there are different people in our midst with different abilities and different areas where they may be handicapped. I guess my question is, what is it that has given you the strength to push on and achieve what you did, which is quite amazing? What she failed to tell us, to share with us just now, is that she continues to be an inspiration for others who are visually handicapped. She believes very much in paying forward. She uses a lot of her free time to do that, right? So therefore, there's a cause. I'll come to that in a while. But first, if you could share with us, what is that single most important factor that has kept you going in spite of all the odds?
Well, I mean, as I've shared, I think it's a long process of growing up. Because, I grew up really, I spent a lot of time as an introvert, so I like to reflect more, like to think more. So for a long time, I could not understand why the world treats the visually impaired people so differently. Because especially, for example, when I try to share people that, I'm interested in doing math. So the first reaction from a lot of people would be, it would be very difficult for a visually impaired person to do this. Because of all the diagrams, of all the symbols. So, I mean, this is just one example. So, there are many instances where it seems that it's a norm. It's a norm for people to tell us that, it's very difficult for you to do this. It's very difficult for you to do that.
And I believe they say it out of care.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, so from my perspective, I mean, often I just felt, I don't really need people to keep on reminding me what I cannot do. But I do need people to kind of tell me how to do some of the things which I cannot do. But then after that, slowly I realized that, people are saying this. It's not really out of any ill intention. It's just that it's a reflection that, because they cannot imagine how they would react when they themselves lose their sight. So to me, I have, through my experience, I feel that, people are generally not so bad. If I'm willing to share my problems and concerns, so perhaps the first reaction maybe it will be very difficult. But if we did manage to discuss our concerns for a while, actually people are generally willing to think of ways to help me out as well, and I've met many such people along the way. So I think through my own experience, I learned that it's very easy to say no. It's very easy to say that this is difficult, that is difficult. But then it's also, if I think that I do not wish that my visual impairment is an obstacle to myself, then I just have to calm myself down, think of solutions, or work out with people, and to learn from people, and to find solutions for the various challenges. And I think after a while, I just enjoy finding finding solutions.
So, a bit of a masochist. But seriously, if you really look at yourself and say, Is it that you are exceptional?
No, I don't think
Okay,
so.
and that's what you shared with me on the phone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when we had a chat, you said, no, you don't think you're that exceptional. But you also said something else, which is what I'm driving at. You if I could repeat what you shared with me when we had the chat on the phone, you said the thing that kept you going is the people who believed in you.
Yeah.
Right? Would you want to share a little bit more about the impact that has had on you? You know, the people who were your classmates, of course your parents, some of your teachers.
Yeah.
What is that impact that they've had on you?
To me, as I shared a little earlier, I think it's very important for me to remember all the help that I received from the people around me. So as I've shared, throughout my whole educational journey, a lot of materials are not that accessible to me. So I don't have all the textbooks in Braille readily. I can't just walk into the library and pick up anything to read as and when I need it. So a lot of times I need to find friends, or family members or volunteers to help me read out those notes and materials. And I know that it's really a laborious process because half the time they do not understand the things that they read themselves. So they're just reading for me. So people have spent time and effort to help me. Yeah, so when I chose junior college, so I approached some junior college and told them that I wanted to do subjects like mathematics, further mathematics, physics. So when I approached Serangoon Junior College, so the teachers there, they know that it's difficult. They know that there are going to be concerns. They were concerned as well. But what makes the difference is they're willing to let me try and they're willing to work together with me. So I think all this support really make a lot of difference to remind me not to give up, to remind me that people have invested their time, invested their time and have supported me in many ways. So all this help often really reminded me that I should really appreciate them and not give up.
Could you share with us one anecdote that moved you the most? You know, I mean that moved you very much over the years.
I think, offhand, it's like I cannot think of one special anecdote that really is really ingrained. But it's a lot of different people since young at different stages of my life who have really helped me. As I've shared, I think helping me to read that is really one very very something that I really appreciated and grateful for.
Perhaps something a teacher did in JC. You shared some of that earlier with me.
They're just okay. Yeah. So for example, I recalled my junior college teacher. So he was teaching me statistics. So statistics, we need to use statistics tables. So I do not have any statistics table in Braille. So in those times, in those years, we don't use graphing calculator. So we need statistical table. So I need a statistical table, a Braille statistical table for me to take my exams. My teacher actually, so he actually learned Braille. So he learned Braille so that he could actually Braille out the whole statistical table for me.
He brailled it.
He brailled it himself. Such efforts, really, really, as in I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the next question, which I'm sure is on many of our minds. The distinction between compassion and pity. It's a fine line, actually, right?
Yeah.
It's a very fine line. I'm myself guilty of it. It's not intentional, but sometimes when you go out of your way to help someone, you could actually end up patronizing that person. For example, you are a blind person, you walk with the aid of your walking stick.
Yeah.
You don't always need someone to hold you and walk. But if if people feel that they need to always hold you and guide you all the time, even in familiar areas, that could actually be patronizing. So I'm just trying to understand a little bit better. For you, how do you draw the distinction between compassion, which is a plus, which is a positive, and people who do things out of pity?
Well, okay. So, to me, yeah, as you said, compassion and pity is really a fine line between them. It may be really very difficult to draw, and sometimes it progresses from one to the other, or perhaps regresses from one to the other. So yeah, so I think it's really a difficult distinction, as in a clear cut. For me, it's very difficult to have a very clear cut distinction to differentiate between these two. But well, I mean, speaking from a person with visual impairment, I think the general perception of someone with disability is often that he or she is quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's quite really like a pity. Yeah. So.
And totally helpless.
Yeah, totally helpless. Like even perhaps So for example, I mean, from my own experience, so it seems to me that the aspirations for someone with visual impairment is totally different from the aspirations from someone who is without any impairment. For example, so I have this. To me, the impression, the expectations of someone with visual impairment for educational or employment purposes. So if you manage to pass your exam, you manage to do well, or you manage to support yourself, whatever employment, it's just a bonus. Yeah, it's not something that is expected, but it's something just a bonus. I do hope that such an attitude can change slowly. Because growing up, I knew that people are out of good intention. So a lot of things, as a visually impaired, it is quite easy for us to ask for exemption from a lot of things. But that in the long run, it is really not a good approach, because ultimately we are still trying to survive in this society. And what we need is often that for people who are, for example, like in school, so we'll be exempted from various activities. As long as you say that, this one is difficult as I'm visually impaired, usually it's quite easy to ask for exemption. Things like even the different activities, PE, parts of examinations, practical, or anything. But to me, it would be more helpful if people are willing to help us to look beyond that. This is difficult for you, so don't need to do it. It's really like it's very, very difficult for you. But help us to find ways. Help us to find ways to manage all these things that without help, it may be more difficult for us to do.
Do you think you speak for a significant number of visually impaired people who feel, as in they feel the same way? They would feel the same way?
I think I speak for many of my friends.
Okay.
but I think, to me, I guess growing up, I do know that as a student. So all the time, of course, many of us will like the easy way out from everything.
Yeah.
Visually impaired or not, we like to be, exempted from anything we don't like to do. But we know that for any child, that's not something that you will encourage. You want them to learn how to do certain things. So I think it's the same for a visually impaired person. So to conveniently say that this is difficult for us, so that to me is just perhaps it's just something that out of convenience as well. So but then in the long run, when we need to support ourselves, when we need to work in the society, cope in the society, so these are the things which will not be exempted anymore.
Exactly, and it limits your options, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, if I could present to you a scenario, and this is a real scenario, right? Recently, late last year, I was talking to a group of individuals who showed tremendous amazement that a group of ITE students, Institute of Technical Education students, actually ended up not only getting degrees, but doing well. Now, there are two ways you can see it, right? One is it can be a source of inspiration. But if you keep saying it over and over again, it could actually end up being patronizing. Because if you keep saying it over and over again, essentially what you're saying is the norm is not for them to actually become graduates.
Yeah.
These are exceptions to the rule. So what you're doing, even though the intention may be good, what you're doing is you're reinforcing a stereotype, right? So similarly, if one continues to invite highly achieved, visually impaired individuals such as self for forums such as this because you are visually impaired, let's face it, you're invited here not because you are an outstanding, especially outstanding researcher.
Yeah.
Correct? You're invited here because you are an outstanding researcher who happens also to be visually impaired.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, if society continues to distinguish you because of your impairment, are we not reinforcing the stereotype? Should we perhaps not have invited you? No, I mean, it's a fair question, I think. Because when do we stop inviting people like you to draw attention to the fact that you are different? And when do we accept that you are quite very much one of us?
Well, I don't want to think of myself as being different, so I'll be happy not to be invited.
I think you have some other reason for that. But you understand what I'm driving at.
Yeah.
How do you draw the line between the two? And I think society is today somewhere caught in this. We are transiting from one to the other,
I think we are still maturing. We are still not at the stage of really embracing everybody for his or her strengths. Yeah, I think like it or not, my visual impairment is something that is obvious. So like it or not, it is really just part of me, which I have learned to accept it. Yeah, so whether I could visualize it, I could view it as a strength or a weakness or a shortcoming. Yeah, so I think this is something that I'm also learning as well. So to me, I have to begin with myself. It depends on how I view my own condition before I can expect people around me to view differently.
Okay,
Yeah.
So let me ask you the final question before I throw it open on the floor. There are currently two broad schools of thought when it comes to special needs education, right?
Yeah.
One school of thought is that those with special needs should be in schools catering to children with special needs. The other school of thought is that from an early age in life, you should be immersed in the mainstream schools and start being considered one of mainstream.
Yeah.
There are pros and cons in both. If you are the minister in charge of whatever ministry that is making a policy on this matter, my mic is just gone. See,
So
I
it's
am
not
very
a fair
sure
question.
ISD is behind it. Okay, is ISD behind it? Anybody's eye? Suddenly, at the critical point when I talk about public policy, you see, look at this. I talked about so many things, and it stopped actually when I said, if you were a minister. It's quite amazing. You see, it's come back. I promise whoever is monitoring, I will not use the word minister again. Or ministry. If you were an individual put in a position where you could have the authority to not only come up with, but also implement public policy, what would you do? In the area of, would you go for the first option, which is specialized special needs schools, or mainstream?
Well, I've been through all.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been through all the various schools, from a special school to a half special school to a purely mainstream school. Yeah, so I mean, personally, I appreciate the process that I have been through, because I think my special school gave me the foundation. Gave me enough foundation to go on to mainstream school to cope. So I view my own process, I view my own journey as something that is progressive. And I'm thankful for that, because I think it started off with me in a special school, and slowly coping to a half special school where I still had friends and some help, but learning to cope in mainstream setting to a purely mainstream school. So at various stages, there were challenges faced, and at various stages, the experience I had previously helped me a lot. So to me, if
Don't use the word.
I will never be the worry. So I don't think I have that authority to make such a decision as well. But perhaps on a more personal level, if I have someone close to me that is in this decision, would I encourage him or her to go to a mainstream school or to a special school? Well, as far as possible, I think I opt for a mainstream school.
But in the earlier years, you're suggesting that a special needs school gives you the foundation.
Yeah, but that was also because we grew up in a stage where information is not publicly available. My parents were quite unaware of how to help me. So I think now resources, now the awareness is growing. And I hope it continues to grow. So I think more mainstream schools are more equipped. So I think I'm more equipped to handle. Although I know that to have students in a class of various disabilities can also be quite challenging.
True.
But I think we're also at the stage whereby we could pump in more resources to try to help students fit into the mainstream setting as early as possible. And I think it's a benefit for both ways, not only just for the students with special needs, but for teachers, for friends, for classmates, for the society as a whole itself.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that's a good point. I think the final point you made is very, very important, because it's not just for the special needs students, but it's also for the teachers and the others involved to understand how to interact with one another. Okay, even though I've stopped using the word, they've just... Okay, now, questions, comments, anyone? Yes, please. Oh, my good friend. Yes.
My name is Tan Si Ping, a graduate of the University of Malaya at that time, 1955. Now, before I came to attend this talk, I was thinking, for the visually handicapped people, whether they live in a world of darkness, total darkness, they can't even differentiate between lightness and so on, and also they seem to live in a world of their own without any contact with society. So do you think that is very desirable or not? To live in your own world, so to speak, that surrounded by maybe your own good friend or something like that, but no contact with society at large. Do you think that is desirable?
That sounds like a prison setting.
Sounds like what?
Prison setting, no contact.
But I think it's a fair question.
Well, I guess, as I shared, to me, as in whether it's visual impairment or not, I think anyone. So it's really best to be able to interact with different people. I think it's really a growing process for all of us. So of course, as a visually impaired, to us, we often feel that only our visually impaired friends understand us best. So sometimes, we feel that it may be quite difficult to interact with people who do not face our circumstances. So that there may be this tendency to just stick to our own visually impaired friends. But I have many good friends who are not visually impaired. And I think that well, it's really through interaction with them that we help each other to learn more about our different views, different needs. And it's really through interaction with my other friends that I'm able to share some of my own perspectives. They're able to understand the needs of the visually impaired better, and I also able to understand better the perspectives of people who are not visually impaired. I think that's how we all learn from one another. So definitely, to me, it's important to be able to communicate and interact with people around.
Right.
Okay, my second question
How many
is
do you have?
only two. No, to what extent is that tolerance of the society? Because if the society don't like people who with handicap to come around here, don't want this visually handicapped, don't want the hearing in handicap to come around. So do you think this is very desirable? I mean, we need to have some tolerance. We cannot just say, no, this is exclusive. It's my territory. You don't come and invade my area, so to speak. So to what extent is the tolerance of society desirable, so that you can interact with the people?
I would say it's obvious it's desirable. But the question, perhaps, if I may suggest, is where do you think we are on this? And do you think that we are moving fast enough towards becoming more accepting of people who are different?
Yeah.
Would that be one driver?
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. But well, I mean, but maybe because I tend to be more positive. Yeah. So growing up, with the experience that I had, I think that we have really changed quite a lot over the past few years. Yeah.
The question is whether we are changing fast enough.
Well, I mean, of course, it cannot be fast enough. Yeah.
It'll be odd if we haven't changed over the years, right?
Yeah.
The question is whether we are changing fast enough to accommodate the variety and range of people around us.
I can't speak for everyone. Yeah, but I mean, I think the awareness for people with impairment, people with visual impairment, has really grown much more now than compared to like 10 years ago. But well, I mean, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. Yeah.
What are some of the myths?
Myths.
Yeah, about the visually impaired that you may want to.
Well, I think first of all, I need to stress that being visually impaired or not, well, every one of us is different. Yeah, I mean, even two people who are visually impaired are really not the same. Well, but it seems to me that there's this tendency to group all the visually impaired people together. So the last thing that I want to happen is that people start thinking that all visually impaired people should do math. So that's I think that's not desirable too. So I think we have to appreciate that visual impairment or not, I mean, just like anyone, we are all different. We have our own likes and dislikes. We have our own interests. Yeah, so we have our own strengths as well. So I think this is one very important assumption that, well, I don't know whether I should call it assumption that, yeah, so I want to dispel right at the start, because it seems to me that everybody just grouped all the visually impaired people together. Because I had an experience where, I mean, someone just came to me, I saw you, I mean, it's quite interesting because, yeah, so they just told me that, I saw you at my lecture in arts faculty. So I just told her, no, I'm from science faculty. I don't attend any lectures in arts faculty. So they just insist, yes, I saw you in my class. I think that's my friend. Okay. So
I'm not sure what kind of visual ability they have. They're obviously seeing things, you know?
Yeah. So I think there's this also tendency that if they know that if they meet one visually impaired person who is good at something, then they will automatically assume that all visually impaired persons will be good at that thing as well. But I mean, as in, I don't think that's quite true because all of us really have our own different interests and different strengths. Yeah, so I think many people are quite influenced by what they watch on TV shows because there are people who kept on asking me like, can you hear from my voice how I look like?
Actually, you're right. Some of the dramas, unfortunately, some of the local drama, they really try and bring the pity out of people, and with lines like that, and they don't help. You see, they just serve to reinforce stereotypes. Yeah. Thank you. Perhaps
one more last question.
Hello.
No, one more last question. Now, this is probably part of nature. If you are handicapped in one area, do you have some compensation on the other area, like your hearing acuity? And no, sometimes you can feel something is going on and all that. Do they, nature compensate for the disability so that you can survive in this world? Do you think that is the case with you? That you have some special ability to do something or to feel sympathy with people and so on? Do you have that ability?
Oh, well, whether it's nature or not, unfortunately, I have not decided. But, well, I think it's from my own experience because I'm not able to see. So I do have to use my other senses more. I think using them more help to train them to be sharper. So for instance, I wouldn't consider my hearing as very good. Yeah, I think there are many people whose hearing is much better than me. But I suppose I use my memory skills more than many other people. So to a certain extent, I think I rely on my memory more than many other average people. So to a certain extent, I think I've trained myself to use my memory skills much better than a lot of people around me. And I guess, I think without one sense, we just have to learn to rely on all other senses to make even better use of them.
Did you hear the way that software, how fast it was going? Is there anyone here who could decipher it?
But you could read.
It's amazing, right? I guess that's compensation because you trained yourself to actually do that, right? How long did it take for you to be able to understand it at that speed?
Maybe a few months.
A few months. Zainal, how many years would you give yourself? You wouldn't, huh? You wouldn't even enter the fray. You enjoyed the gibberish. Okay, could we have another question? I'll come to you later. The gentleman in blue and then Zainal.
Yeah, my name is Patrick. Dr. Yeo, just
Patrick,
like to ask you a question.
Could you say where you're from? Thank you.
I'm just a guest here. Yeah. Dr. I'd like to know, do you think that without this disability, would you have achieved this ability and the level that you have achieved so far? The second question I have is, what role does your parents play in inspiring you? What I get from here is that, you have mentioned about a lot of friends, a lot of schools, a lot of teachers, but you never mentioned anything about government policy. You achieve all this without any help from the government in that sense. I think that is what inspired me more because you rely on yourself and the people around you rather than waiting for the big boys to help you around. Thank you.
There seem to be a few questions. Yeah. So your first question was whether I could have, be where I am without my disability. Yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that question. Yeah, because I think my disability has helped me to appreciate more things and helped me to focus on some things. Yeah, so to be, so I think, whether without my disability, I would have gone for a different route. I really can't answer this question. Yeah. Yeah, so, but I can only say that, well, I think my disability has really helped me to appreciate the people around me better. So it helps me to focus more, and I think that helps me to be where I am today as well. Yeah, so as for my parents, yeah, well, to me, well, my parents, it had not been easy for them to have a daughter who is blind. Yeah, to learn how to manage, especially at a stage where I mean, as in information is not readily available, as I've shared. Yeah, so they do not know what sort of future I had, what sort of career prospects I had. But they were supporting. They were really supporting in the sense that they had no problem with whatever I chose to do. Yeah, because while people were telling me that, oh, going to your university, well, you know, it may not be well, I mean, very wise for a visually impaired, but they know that that is what I wanted. And they were willing to really support me all the way in whatever method they could. And I think such kind of support is what what the family is what my family has provided me all along. And of course, my siblings, they have helped me to. They would be the people that I had to turn to whenever I had notes which I couldn't find anyone to read. So well, I just had to pester them. Well, whatever. So they are really, the people who I had to turn to for my last resort. So I think this is what family is for. Yeah. So as for government policies, while I was growing up, well, to be very frank, so I think there weren't too many policies targeted at helping the handicapped during the years that I was growing up. But well, I've been to some other countries, visiting their blind associations, and I think, in a sense, on reflection, so I felt quite fortunate or quite blessed in a sense, because I'm not sure if there were policies whether I would be in math or not. because I visited China and Taiwan, so they had some policies from the government, and the policies were that is only better for the blind people to go into certain kind of jobs, to pick up certain kind of skills, like for example massage skills, tuning skills, piano tuning skills, or some musical skills. But so in a sense, I think during those years where I was in school, so I chose to do math. So there wasn't any policy to support me actively. Yeah, but there was also no policy to stop me from doing it. And I guess that is how I managed to take advantage of that, and I managed to pursue something which I enjoyed. So, in those years, I've been looking at some of the other experience from some other countries. Whether, I'm not so confident whether the policies will be to my benefit. So, but now, of course, with the different experience that I had and some of us had, and from other countries, I think there are now more policies targeted at helping the disabled. Like for example, I'm very happy that the various universities are setting up disability officers to help students with special needs. And they are putting in more funds to help with assistive technology, or to help with to more target at helping the employment needs. Yeah, so all these policies are really good policies, which of course I hope that they existed during my time. But I think on the other hand, I think I meet people who have helped me out of their own goodwill. Yeah, so I think this is also things which I'm grateful for as well.
Right, thanks. Yes, I know. Yes.
Thank you, Vishwa. From your interventions and your contribution, basically you're saying that let's have more light.
A bit louder, I know. A bit louder.
More light or more sound?
More sound.
Okay. All right. I also had a similar question about your parents, Dr. Yeo. Are your parents here?
No.
No. But I'm sure all of us here agree that, in fact, the parents also deserve a round of applause for their contribution. Well, Dr. Yeo, I like to assure you that I'm not staring at you, but I am full of admiration. I've also been very fortunate to have actually engaged with quite a number of visually impaired people. For example, from Ron Chandran Dudley to Jim Beck to Daud. Jim Beck actually has got a master's in therapy, and Daud, who is working with the British Council, and the British Council helped him a lot in terms of to be very functional. And a very simple man, my own uncle, visually impaired, but his saving grace that he got so fantastic a memory that he remembers names, remembers birthdays, and make a point to call our relatives on birthdays, and they really make our world. So, Dr. Yeo, I find you really, you may be very visually impaired, but you are really very enlightened. Your reflections, your values really inspire a lot of us. And I think for that, we hope you'll be blessed with the extras, which will continue to inspire a lot of other people. So my question here tonight is, well, you're talking to all of us here. Are there any visually impaired people in the audience?
Yes, in front.
There are some, is it?
Yeah.
But the majority of whom are actually not visually impaired. But you'll be surprised. Maybe not this audience. I think they're all very enlightened too. But there are a lot of people outside, not visually impaired, but blind to a lot of things, including the kind of reflections that you shared with us tonight. So my question is, whether your message will be quite similar, what you shared with us tonight, will be quite similar to what you would share with the other visually impaired people who feel dejected, who feel there's not enough policies, who feel there's not enough help. What more could be done from your point of view for the visually impaired so that they can rise and achieve? Like what you just said in your last answer, there may not be enough policies, not fast enough, you say, but there's no policy to stop you from achieving your dreams. That to me was a very fundamental position that everyone can achieve and everyone can dream. So what's your answer if you were talking to the visually impaired, those who feel, not only the visually impaired, those who are handicapped in different ways, what is your message to them? Thank you.
That was not a question, it was actually a speech. This is what happens when you have politicians and ex-politicians up there.
Because I think he has answered his question.
You see, that is the statement. That is the statement of the day. See, when a politician asks a question, he actually answers it. Then he asks a question to answer that question. But I think, knowing him, I think there's a certain element of sincerity in that question. Well, I guess the key question is, how would you say something differently if you're speaking to an audience that comprises people who are visually impaired?
Well, of course, as a visually impaired myself, I do understand their concerns. Yeah, I do understand their frustrations. Yeah, which sometimes I still have as well. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that. Well, which is why I do not think that. I'm inspirational in any way, because at times I still have frustrations myself. Yeah, so as a visually impaired, I understand their frustrations when I feel that the society is not giving them enough opportunities, that the policies are not targeted at helping people like us. Yeah, so I think this is very natural, because we grew up in a society that it really works that way. It's not catered to help the handicapped people. It's more catered to help the ordinary people.
The mainstream.
Yeah, the mainstream people.
Yeah.
So I have to face the fact that this society works that way. But I've learned from my own experience that it starts with myself. I could be complaining all day. I could be waiting for the whole world to help me. Perhaps the whole world is helping me. But if I do not wish to help myself, then I really couldn't go anywhere. But I think if I choose to strive forward and try to find challenges, find solutions to challenges. Ultimately, I may not be able to convince everyone that this is something suitable for me. But there will be people out there who will be able to see my effort and who will be willing to help me along as well. And I think this is what I've learned along the way. So I continue to remind myself, and I also will share with all my other visually impaired friends as well.
So I guess the message is self-help. But on the point about public policy, my suggestion, okay, I got to use this. My only addenda, since that's the word these days, is you could be someone who's blessed with the exceptional qualities to fend for yourself. But you can't make that assumption of the vast majority of others with the similar handicap, who may need the state's a lot more direct intervention by the state to give them a leg up.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point that the gentleman behind also was alluding to. But I don't think this is the right forum for us to go into an extended discussion of that. But I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with that. But I'd like to, there have been several questions coming from the online community who are watching it. This is webcast live, by the way. They're watching it, and I'd like to highlight one of the questions now. Is it coming up? Yeah. The question is, how do you relate to mathematics? How do you understand the language of numbers? There's another question related to this. What methods do you use to understand diagrams and pictures? I mean, it's quite fascinating, right? Most of us who are not visually impaired already have a problem with many of the signs and symbols, So it's quite fascinating to think how a person who's visually impaired would be able to manage all those formulas. The sigma and all these signs. I mean, how do you manage that? And especially to look at, to refer to the tables, the stats tables, the log tables, and so on.
I guess my learning style will be different from all of you, most of you here. Yeah, because just too used to looking at things. So your assumption would be that you can only do math when you have the whole equation in front of you. Yeah, but frankly, actually, many of us can solve questions without looking at it if you train yourself. So I happen to have to train myself since young. So I started by learning Braille. Yeah, so I will feel. Yeah, as all of you read, so to me, I'll feel the Braille. So that's how I went through my primary school. So I started also through reading, but it's just not through seeing, it's just through touch. Yeah, but then I slowly learned to depend more on my own mind to visualize the equations in my mind itself. It's really very hard for me to describe how I can solve a math question without seeing, because I've not solved a question with seeing before.
That's an amazing answer. It's so difficult for us to see that, right? Do you because even though you became blind about the age of 4, right? Or at least you were diagnosed. But you were suggesting that the process could have started much earlier.
Yeah.
And you do not have any memory of your parents, right?
No.
Visual?
No.
So do you even have a mental picture of how a person looks like? A person, not your parents, a person.
Well,
the structure of the face.
I have a mental visualization.
Okay, how do I look?
Whether
Okay. Stop telling the truth. Okay? How do I look, Zealand? You have to answer this question.
How do you visualize me?
Oh, no, I don't visualize from the image of a person.
Okay, so how do you visualize me? Don't sidestep the question.
I've answered the question. I do not visualize you.
You don't visualize me? That's such a terrible insult. I've never had a woman tell me I don't visualize you. All right, with that, let's go to, we have time for one last question. Yes, ma'am, yes.
Dr. Yeo, you can't see me. I just want to describe that I'm an old lady, 85 years old, the wife of the first questioner.
Sorry?
And they've been here for the past 3 years, every session without fail. Can you give them a big hand? By the way, You Alive has been around for 3 years, huh? Every month. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, Dr. Yeo, I just wondered whether you have any possibility of having an eye transplant. The other question is, number 2, the way you talk, the way you present yourself, you seem to be very, very calm and peaceful and full of inspiration. Whatever you have taught just now, I'm sure, all this, the place is crowded with young university students. This will give them a lot of inspiration because nowadays the young people are very dissatisfied with life.
This one is sounding like a lecture. Okay, all young people, put your heads down in shame.
And yeah, I feel that, those who come here must give them a lot of inspiration. They have everything. They have eyes, ears, everything is perfect. But another question to ask you, you seem to be so peaceful and so full of hope for others. Are you a religious person? Do you believe that somewhere, that God is giving you something that will inspire other people? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, for the eye transplant, you have to ask the doctor, a real medical doctor. Yeah, but as far as I've been told, yeah, that there seems to be no possibility for any kind of surgery or operation or so on. Yeah. So as for your question about religious, about faith, I'm still trying to explore, trying to understand more about it myself. But I think I've learned that. Something that I've learned is that there are a lot of things that are beyond my control, which is what I've learned to accept it. And I do believe that there's God out there who is guiding me. Yeah. So who despite my handicap has provided me with some strength and gifts as well. So as for whether there is any plan to inspire other people or not, the truth is I'm still trying to explore and understand, find out more about this myself. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we will allow one more question.
Comment here. You find that those who've attained enlightenment, you find them a picture of calm, and you find that their eyes are shut. An example of that being Gautam Buddha. Just wanted to.
Sorry, we didn't get the last. Didn't get the last part.
I wanted to say that those who've attained enlightenment, known to have attained enlightenment, when you see their picture, they're usually found to be with their eyes shut. An example of that is Gautam Buddha.
Yes.
And perhaps that should tell us something.
Right. Thank you. That's, you got that?
Sorry?
You got that? Basically those who have pictures that we have of those who have attained enlightenment have their eyes shut, or half shut at least. I think that's the point you're trying to make.
Oh, yeah. but I have to clarify. I don't think I've reached any enlightenment or anything.
Well, I guess the point we're trying to make is you're probably one of the most enlightened in this setting here. Yeah, but But I get your point, and I don't think there was a suggestion that you are enlightened. I'm sure there are terrible parts of your character that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're normal, right? I must say, I've been chairing You Alive for 3 years, once a month. And this is by far the most inspirational.
Thank you.
And I tell you why I find it inspirational. I find it inspirational because you are normal.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have found it inspirational if you came here and were continuously talking about how different you are because you're blind. The message that kept coming through is how you are like me and like the rest of us in most ways except one. And that is what inspires. You see, when you are very, very different, I mean, if you were a saint sitting here and saying this, frankly, after a certain point, I wouldn't be overly inspired because I'll say, you're a saint, you can say that. You know what I'm saying? But you presented yourself as one of us, and that's why I found it extremely inspirational. And I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of us here. We're exceptionally proud to say that you are an NUS alumnus.
Thank you.
May I invite us to give her a standing ovation? Ladies and gentlemen. Sze Ling, the entire audience is giving you a standing ovation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Actually, you can drink the water that was given to you to drink. We've got a gift for you. We've got a gift for you. Usually it's a gift where we ask you to write something.
Yeah.
But today, we had asked Sze Ling to tell us in advance all the nice things she wants to say about me. But I think she has changed her mind and said about other things. It's in Braille. So, Sze Ling, I'd leave it to you to tell us what you've written here. It's in front of you. It's in Braille.
It's in Braille. Oh.
Yeah.
So they.
Oh, okay, this is the one. That's in Braille. Hello. We all make mistakes, huh? I don't know what Braille feels like.
Okay, so
Okay.
actually I wrote this message that may the NUS community continue to grow in knowledge and compassion, embracing one another, working together to help make a difference in the lives of the people around us.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll give this to you later. What are you all guys waiting for? Let's go out and have something. Thank you very much. Come, Sze Ling.
Thank you.
I'm sure many of them would like to meet and talk with you.
I need to take my cane.
Your cane.